Welcome to the Loan Officer Team Training Podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to share my recent experience as a guest on the Leadership Podcast Matters, where I joined fellow co-authors of the book Leadership Matters: Insights and Strategies from Industry Leaders. It was such a rewarding journey to write my chapter From Good to Wow, Mastering the Traits of Exceptional Leaders, and a true honor to collaborate with industry leaders that I deeply respect and learn from. As a first-time author, this experience has fueled my passion for writing. So stay tuned. There's definitely more to come on my journey to writing my own books. Best of all, the book's proceeds go directly to A Need We Feed, an organization delivering over 11,000 hot meals annually to veterans, families, and those in need. You can purchase the book at leadershipmatters.us or on Amazon to support this incredible cause. Enjoy this conversation as we dive into the importance of leadership, listening, and giving back.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Laugh Underneath the Podcast. This is our special series here called Leadership Matters because, Ginger, you know why, right?
It does.
It does. Absolutely. You hit it right on the head. And we've got a full panel this time, Ginger. So we've got a couple of people, more than we had last time, I think. So we have my good friend, Joe Wilson from SocialCoach. We got my newfound friend, Don Hastings. And then we have Irene Duford. Did I get it right, Irene?
You got it right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for being on here. And thank you so much for being co-authors with us in this book. So, Ginger, we're getting closer to the date of the release of this book.
We are. Yeah, we are a month from today. A month.
Yeah, today's the 19th. Today's the 19th. That's right.
Yes.
So, is everybody excited about this book release?
Oh, yeah.
How would we not be?
Yeah. I'm excited to see what everybody else wrote.
Have you guys ever done a book before?
No.
No book.
This is my first chapter in a book.
Wow. Don, how about you?
Ginger, she kept encouraging me.
Well, we're about to put out another one, and Ginger's probably about to wring my neck for being so particular with it. But, I'm going to have it all finished by tomorrow, so we'll be ready.
Okay, good. Yeah.
All 6,000 pages, right?
Oh, yeah, almost.
Not quite. Yeah. Don's been working on his own book.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so we're going to be publishing that as soon as he finishes reading what I sent over to him.
All right. Ginger, let me ask you a question. I mean, I know we got guests on here, but I got to ask you, I mean, I know you and I came with the idea and you've kind of took the lead on it. Like, what's been the most interesting thing you've noticed so far about this book so far? Like, you're putting it together. You're kind of behind the scenes by yourself, reading all these stories of all of us. What's got your attention?
You know, honestly, Fobby, the thing that's gotten my most attention and probably I've enjoyed the most is the conversations that I've been having with the authors that are in the book, talking about their story and what they do and what leadership looks like. And it's funny because, you know, when you and I, you know, came up with this idea, hey, let's do this. First of all, we know there's a need, so that's easy. But the second thing is that's been probably the most eye-opening to me is how many incredible leaders that we invited. And, you know, this was a handpicked group that we invited who don't feel worthy, which was a surprise because when, you know, I look at them, it's like, are you kidding me? And for example, one of the very, very first people that I ever worked for when I got into the mortgage industry, I invited into the book because I saw her navigate through building a company up to where it honestly, it went out of business overnight from a record month to completely out of business. And that's how fast our industry can shift, right? And so it's funny just watching her through that and having conversations, just what she's done throughout her entire career. And she still didn't have that feeling of being a leader. And so this has been really good, not just from getting those stories, but also just to reinforce you are a leader, right?
Irene, I mean, I know we were talking before the show started and you had your own personal journey being an immigrant and the daughter of an immigrant, I mean, when Ginger talks about not feeling worthy or that, did that play into your psyche at all?
Actually, I was really very fortunate because my dad, because he was an immigrant, he didn't know English when he first came from Mexico. He met my mom and married a woman with 13 kids.
Oh, wow.
Divorced with 5 at home. And then they had me, and I wasn't planned. But my dad was very, he spoke to me about leadership all of my life. Like he is the voice in my head that tells me you can do it. If you put your mind to it and you have the mentality that you work hard, you can get it done. So I was very fortunate to have a father that really fed me to be expected to be a leader.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I had the same situation with myself. So let me ask you a question. Now, here's interesting because I'm from Pakistan. You're from Mexico. Or your dad was.
My dad was.
Like, do you hear your dad speaking Spanish or English?
Both.
Right?
Both. I hear my dad speaking English with a little bit of an accent sometimes. But yeah, I hear both because I grew up speaking part.
It's interesting. Ever since my dad passed, I started speaking English in my head to him. But when he was alive, I would speak our native tongue of Urdu.
Oh, that's funny.
I very rarely spoke English to him.
Interesting.
Yeah. He spoke Spanish to me, but I didn't answer him in Spanish. And one of my biggest regrets is not teaching my kids Spanish.
Yeah, well, it's never too late. Never too late. They have Duolingo and all these other things. It's amazing what you can learn nowadays.
You can teach your grandkids.
That's right. And my grandkids are on Duolingo. One of them is like really learning a lot of Spanish. And so I'm really happy about that.
Speaking of Spanish, my friend Joe Wilson is very bilingual, aren't you, Joe? I mean, I heard you rolling Spanish when we were all together in Florida.
No, not at all. But I don't know. I will tell you a funny story though. I took the most useless language in high school, which was French. And a couple years ago, we went to France, and I'd been almost 2 decades since I had taken a French class, but I took Duolingo, and I did it for like 8 months before we went. I'm like, I'm going to go and use this language once and for all. And I felt super confident about my French skills of just getting along the way and doing all these different things. And we get there, I'm like, all right, this is my chance. To my wife, I'm like, this is my opportunity. I'm gonna crush it in French. And I go and I start speaking French to somebody, and they respond to me in English almost immediately. Right? And I'm like, you don't get it. This is my Super Bowl for all those years of taking French, and they didn't care. But I have a comment, Ginger. What you said is, and I'm sure I'm one of these people saying to you, oh, I don't feel, I just feel lucky to be part of this group. And, you have all these amazing people that are echoing that same sentiment. And I think there's a reason for it. And it goes back to a book I read years ago called The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. I don't know if you guys read that, but there are 3 things that he says there are the ideal team players: humble, hungry, and smart. And that humility piece is what makes a really great teammate, but it also makes a great leader. So I think that not feeling worthy is a symbol of that humility that most leaders have, is that, hey, I'm just doing my part. I'm being the best that I can, and I'm going to put in all the hard work that I can. But most people who are good leaders don't feel like they're not braggadocious about it, right?
Exactly.
And if they are, I don't think they're part of this group. Right. So I think you've done a phenomenal job at putting this really great group of leaders that I feel honored to be a part of, and learning from everybody as we're going through this process together. So thank you for
humility. Be looked as is like knowing how good you are, and not needing to brag about it, and knowing your weaknesses and knowing that you need to work on it. That's what I was defined as humility. So if you're good at something, you're good at it. You don't need to hide from it. I think that's what, I mean? The thing that I've learned, especially in the last 5 seasons of this podcast, is how many people really are amazing, but they're afraid to step out into that light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a difference between confidence and braggadocious, though.
Exactly.
Yes,
absolutely.
Right.
There's a fine line, and when you cross it, the whole world knows you just don't know.
It's very quick. It's very quick.
About telling. It's about sharing that. And Fobby, it's that the conversation that really led to this book was exactly that. Sometimes I feel like, Fobby, you're the best kept secret in our industry because you are so humble and you don't share a lot of those attributes. And those are oftentimes the best leaders. And that's something to look for as well. But it is okay to share your strengths, your expertise, all of those things. I always say when I do my workshops, it's not bragging, it's branding. People need to know you. They need to know who you are. They need to know what you do, right?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there, Ginger. You got to be true to you, and you got to be true to who you are, and you have to be authentic. I think everybody's tired of these fake leaders that come up and they lead by authority and not lead by influence. And you have to be authentic because your character really is the core of your leadership, and self-leadership. You got to learn how to lead yourself before you can lead others. And that's the foundation. And so it's that introspective. And if you don't think you're authentic, and if you're worried about being authentic, then you need to start working on yourself before you start working on other people. Because I've always thought, I've been in multi-industries and worked in a lot of different folks. And I've always felt like my job as a leader was a servant leader. And that was to help other people be as successful as they could possibly be.
Yes.
And I used to tell everybody all the time, I don't need to worry about, what kind of house I'm in or what kind of car I'm in. If I help these other folks get the car they want to be in and the house they want to be in, or get enough for them to do that, then I can go do it anyway, because as long as I set up the pay structure properly, I'm going to be in pretty good shape. So I never worried about me. I just worried about them. And if enough of them were successful.
Don, is that where your personal development really kind of like you talked about personal development before we started recording? I mean, is this where you begin to really see where you need to develop, and then by you developing, you could then coach other people into that same kind of mindset?
Yeah, and I think so many people they don't really know where to start. Everybody, where everybody always hears about starting is what's your why. Well, there's a lot more than what's your why, but it all starts with just getting folks down to their thoughts, and the thoughts are the core. And but the thoughts don't really make any difference if you don't take action on those things. And it's the action that create the habits. And until you get a habit tracker and get into changing your habits, you're not going to be able to develop that character. Because again, that's what everybody's looking for, is that character and who you really are. And until you get that honed in, your destiny is just going to be way out there. It's just not going to be close enough. So it is a ladder. There are several foundations to get there. And I just think that self-development has to be prioritized. In order to be a leader, you have to learn, to delegate tasks so you have time for yourself as well.
Irene, was there a moment where you realized, hey, I'm leading, and you didn't even realize you were leading? Or was that something that you just naturally kind of morphed into, or was it sudden?
I had an opportunity when I was really young to manage 19 people at 19 years old. I look at it now and I think, wow, that's amazing. But at the time, it just felt normal.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, it was a great experience. And I mention it in the book because it's part of leadership. So, yeah, there were all of a sudden.
Were there older people, part of the 19 people, were there older than?
I was the youngest person of all those people.
How do they look at you when you're telling them what to do and you're so much younger?
It was really interesting. There was one person that had a little bit of trouble with it. I think she was in her 50s. Oh. And she was a teller, but she only wanted to be part-time. It was in a savings and loan, if that tells you. That's dating it, right? Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's because they knew I cared about them. They knew that they were number one, that it wasn't about me. It was about them, helping them with whatever they needed and helping the clients. I have always been a student. I've always been one that took classes and was in personal development and things like that. It started when I was young like that. But yeah, it had its challenges being that young, managing that many people, and they were all older than me. Yeah. But I think they knew that I cared about them. Yeah.
Remember when we had Joe Panabianco on here, we were talking about leadership, and I asked, did you ever want to aspire to be a leader? And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think anyone ever at least that I know of, right, that actually just said, well, I'm going to be a leader. That's all I ever want to be, right?
Right.
You started SocialCoach a few years ago. I remember the birth of SocialCoach, right? I remember the moment at the first video I saw, right? When you launched SocialCoach, you were basically launching something that actually failed, and then you had to rebrand it or redirect it. At that point, walk us to that one moment where you realize, okay, this is wrong, but there's got to be some way I can fix this. This is just true leadership in action. You know what I mean? You're on the stage, everyone's watching you on LinkedIn and Instagram, and it's like the whole world's watching now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's the like genesis of every good startup story is you got to kind of find your way into the niche that works for you and works for the direction of what you want to do. And I think that I won't bore you with all the mechanics of why things didn't work out the right way, but there's a right time and a right place for everything. And I think a lot of leadership, what you do is you read what's happening. You like read the room, right? It's like, what's the feedback that you're getting either from your team, from the industry, from your users, from the market dynamics, and being able to make educated guesses. And that's what it is. It's really just a guess, right? Because none of us, I mean, I'm hearing we've got, students of professional development, all these kind of things. And like, you could take every class in the world on leadership, on, being a manager, on a startup and all those kind of things. And you still have to guess on what to do, right? There's no right answer. There's no book for how to manage your specific team, how to grow this specific company. You have to really be able to understand what's actually going on, be, again, humble enough to say, yeah, maybe I didn't have it right before. And then be able to take that and be able to pivot to where it is going to work. And that whether it's your team or your users or the market, to be able to make it work. And it's that consistency in trying, getting up when you fail a little bit and continue to go and test and try every which way that you think and know in your heart's going to be best. And then just keep on going, because if you stop, you fail. Yeah,
that is really true. Dottie,
I think leaders are the king of failure. They just are, because they understand that a failure is really a success because you were successful in finding a way that won't work. So you just have to turn it around and then try another way. But you have to be adaptable, and you have to be quick on your feet, and you have to learn to trust your instincts. And the only way to do that sometimes is to acknowledge and raise your hand and say, hey, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. Let me go get that guy or that gal and get some mentorship and get that, because the only way you're going to get confidence is through competence. But you have to build it. You can't rush through it. It takes time.
Are you holding off on training your loan partners, your loan assistants, your team members and support staff on how to wow your clients? Are they getting that kind of training from you? You probably plan on training them if you get a few extra hours, but when does that happen realistically? And meanwhile, your team is doing the best they can with the information that they have. But this kind of training really doesn't exist anywhere else. When you do the training, that means you're not as responsive as you want to be with your clients, and you're not hitting your closing and income goals as a loan officer. So how much is it costing you to not have a team that's properly trained how to wow clients and referral partners so that they only want to work with you because of the great experience that they're getting? We teach them how to use efficient step-by-step processes and systems that work, how to follow up so nothing falls through the cracks and loans close on time and even early, how to build wonderful relationships with clients, how to wow people so they go, man, that was an amazing experience. The members of his or her team are amazing. They're so on it. How to use scripts and dialogues for winning clients, setting expectations and communicating with clients so that you can prevent problems down the road. How to handle difficult clients, how to make clients feel appreciated and valued, and how to handle and overcome objections. It might be time to ask for some help. That's why we're here. Loan Team Training has our next live WOW training coming up. We train your team for you so you can focus on closing loans. Check it out at loanteamtraining.com for our next class and see how many 5-star reviews we have from past WOW training participants and their loan officers who sent them at loanteamtrainingreviews.com. Remember, it's an interactive virtual training with live trainers, and we train any of your support staff that is communicating with clients and referral partners. Our sessions are 9 to 11:30 Pacific time. Check us out and sign your loan partner or team member up at loanteamtraining.com.
Well, and your thoughts are important. And I know, and Don, I loved reading your chapter. because you really go into that, just that beginning base. And as a leader, how you control your thoughts to take those actions, as you did, Joe, to say, hey, we've recognized either we can keep doing this or we're going to shift. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? How do you control your thoughts, especially in the midst of failure? Don?
Yeah, I mean, control.
Or Joe?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's just about surrounding yourself with the right people, first of all, and surrounding yourself, with the right culture, mm-hmm. and then the right information. And I've always believed in reading, just voraciously, and reading from the thought leaders. You're going to find something out there, and just find out what the others did. But the main thing is just, again, not getting too pompous and not too proud, but just keep your thoughts pure and know where you're going every day and check yourself. That's the main thing. And the only way to do that, again, I always talk about habit trackers, and everybody's like, what the heck is that? But you just have to check yourself and say, well, what was I supposed to do last week, and what did I do? And sometimes the habit tracker is the only way, is just to check that box and say, did I read? Did I talk to my mentor? Did I look for this? Did I look for that? And today, there's so much out there. I mean, my son, he spends so daggone much time on YouTube, in his leadership. There's so much out there. It's almost cheating. It used to be, you just had to go find a book at the library and figure out if it was any good. But today, you just go online.
There was a thing called reading.
Yeah.
Right? You had to read the whole book and say, oh, that book sucked.
Well, and the problem is, I used to be a collector of books, right? I get this book, and then I'd never crack it. But I had a great collection, and then I started reading them. And then I realized that when you come across one that's good, you want to read it a second time, and then you want to get your highlighters out and really go after it. And several of them that I look at are Atomic Habits, Compound Effect, Miracle Morning. Those are three that I just loved. I just highlight the heck out of them. And then once you read it and you study it, then you got to implement it, or it does you no good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Irene, talk about mentors. I mean, I know you said that you surrounded yourself with good mentors.
Yes.
I mean, was that I guess designed, or was that just by luck that happened?
It was by luck. When I was young and I first got into the business, I got some great mentors. And as time went on, I was looking for mentors. I didn't even realize it. Now I can look back and say I looked for them. But at the time, it just seemed natural to navigate towards people that I could learn from. And I was very lucky to do that. But when I got into the mortgage business, my mentors were actually my lender reps, because I was promised training and I didn't get it from my broker. And so I went to my lender rep, my A paper and my B paper lender reps, and they taught me the business. And I actually just went to her recently and reignited the relationship. I found her on LinkedIn and I said, are you the Karen that used to be at Sierra Pacific? And she said, yes, I am. Oh my gosh. She's right here in the valley, in the Phoenix Valley. So I'm going to get together with her. I would not have made it in the mortgage business without her.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all need somebody, right, Ginger? I mean, no matter where we are, no matter how long you've been in the business or in any career, you're always going to need that somebody that you can bounce ideas off of and make sure you're not losing it, right? Or that you're thinking right, and make sure you get that other voice. Irene, was there a quality that you're looking for in mentors? Or, I mean, something like, was there a similarity between your mentors, or was there something that this person could teach you, then this person could teach you, that kind of stuff?
I think it's just with each job, I sought them out I was attracted to the people who were caring, who had the same values I did. They were caring. They gave great service. I noticed whether I was in their branch, like in the mortgage business, they were the broker and I could see that they were trying to help me. That would be a mentor to me, because they cared, and they showed that they cared, and they took time to train or to do things over the years. But it didn't just come naturally. It was something that I really looked for, because I was a voracious, and still am, reader. I do more of the Audible now.
Guilty.
I have started I do both. I buy the book and I do Audible, but I was a voracious reader. And so I always wanted to be learning. I just had this need to keep learning and developing. And so I was lucky enough to find good people along the way that were willing to help. But
Yeah.
I was attracted to them because they were willing to help and serve.
Joe, what about you? I mean, you've had a pretty interesting career I mean, you've been in the mortgage business, now you're a vendor, you were a vendor. I mean, mentors, people that you looked up to. I mean, who guided you?
Oh yeah, I mean that's my whole life. I feel like is always surrounding myself with good people, and that's what it is. Whether you call them a mentor or a friend, it's all about who do you surround yourself with, who do you spend the most time with, right? And I consciously think about that a lot. Is like who are like the 9 or 9 or 10 people I spend the most time with, at home in my home life, but also in my professional life. Like who do I gravitate towards at conferences as I go to, or who do I ping ideas off of and things like that. And those are all real, like the best individuals like yourselves, right? That like I go to a lot. Like Fob, you and I talk a lot. And there's a purpose for that, right? Because I really look up to you. I trust your opinion, and I feel like it's the same, back. And it's like when you surround yourself with people who are high achieving or, are really good people that will tell you the truth. And I think that's the biggest part is, finding people that are not just going to be yes men around you, yes men or yes women, I guess. But like people who there's a lot of people out there who want to be a good friend and want to always tell you the right thing. And that's not what you need. Sometimes you need the hard truth to help you get better, to see past where your own blinders are. And finding those types of people is really difficult sometimes in our world where we're so afraid to say the wrong thing. But having that deep trust with people that you surround yourself with and that you have that open relationship with, I think is probably the most important things for a healthy relationship with that individual, but B, for your own personal growth too.
You know what's interesting, Ginger, when you were thinking about that, like how many years you and I talked and never met.
Yeah.
Right. And this new age technology world that we're all in, right? And even you, Joe, like years went by, but the friendship was so deep that when you actually met, your brain didn't recognize that we had never met before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at all. And that's so true. And I mean, that's one of the things too, when you think about being a leader, about having that connection and deepening that connection. And I think the one thing I'm thinking about the different chapters that I'm reading as they're coming in from our authors. And the one recurring thing that I'm seeing over and over and over again as a leader, as far as if you want to look at what's a really good skill set as a leader to have, it's being a good listener.
Yes.
And that is one of those things, whether you're, Joe, talking to a friend or to a mentor or to someone that you've developed a relationship with, like Fobby and I, honestly, I think maybe we were on a podcast together. So I don't even remember how we ended up getting connected, but it was one of those things. And then, when you're looking at building that team who you're going to surround yourself with, that have the right mindset, that are, looking at growing, to make sure to nurture that relationship and take care of that relationship, because it is extremely valuable. And you never know, when you're going to need that or when you're going to be able to be a support or to listen.
Yeah.
So I think surrounding and building those tribes, if you will, is important. And that's really one of the things, Fobby, you and I talked when we had our first author call with everyone together, that we really saw. It's like building that, camaraderie of.
To Don's point, listening is part of servant leadership.
Yep.
Yes.
So, whereas traditional leaders, they want to be heard, a servant leader wants to listen. And I think that really speaks a lot is how well do we listen? And Jay Duran, I don't know if you guys all know Jay Duran, but him and I have been getting, like, I don't know how many hours of podcasting we've now done. But one of the greatest lessons I've learned from him is listening to people whose opinions are opposite of mine and letting them feel safe.
Yes.
And that's always so tough as a leader, right? Because we're kind of like deadlocked and this is where we're heading. I don't care. We got to get there. And then somebody says, well, you might hit a wall if you do that. What do you think?
Well, I know, my dad always used to tell me, be careful with saying my way or the highway until you've looked at the highway first. The highway may be a hell of a lot better than your way. And so when you're talking to people, I think what's so very important about it is in communication is you need to understand that yeah, you got one mouth, two ears, but you also got two eyes. And so you need to watch what's going on as you're communicating, but also understand that your people have eyes and ears as well, and they're watching you. And if you don't lead by example, then it's just you're losing your authenticity. You're losing that rapport, and you're losing that influence with them. So you got to just understand you're always under the microscope. You may not realize it, but they're watching.
Yeah, and listening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a full-time job. Don, what's one thing that you may have discovered yourself in writing this chapter? Did you discover anything about yourself while writing this chapter?
Well, I think I always discover the fact that, maybe I can by doing all these things, I can be 1% better tomorrow. And that's what I've always tried to do, is just be a little bit better. And it's easy to go out and tell people what to do, but are you actually doing all of it yourself? And so I think the greatest thing about teaching and really, Ginger, while learning about the greatest thing about writing, is the fact that you learn so much, by doing that. And that's what I really gained with all the podcasts and things that I've done, all the seminars and webinars, is that by taking the time to be knowledgeable enough to teach it, now your subconscious is finally saying, man, this guy might actually believe this stuff, and that's your biggest battle, is your unconscious or subconscious mind. And like I told a guy the other day, I forget what I told him. He said, man, that's a great quote. And I said, well, man, I've stolen so many quotes over the years. I don't know who I stole them from, but now my brain just thinks they're all mine. I just use them.
That's good. That's good.
I mean, you've never written a book before, right? And you've never written anything like this before. I mean, when I emailed you, I mean, what was your reaction when you first read that email?
I was thinking you were smoking something good that day to ask me to be part of this, and I don't smoke, but I'm like, yeah, we'll see. No, I mean, I think that, I never have written a book, and I've never really had any problems writing, though, right? I think that's just something that came pretty naturally to me, as through school and everything. But this was, I jumped at it really quick, though, to work with Ginger and you, Fobby, because Ginger and I didn't really know each other, but I had heard so many wonderful things about her. I'm like, oh, I got to work with Ginger. This is going to be awesome. Like, what a great way to get in with someone I've admired from afar, professionally. So, but I thought it would be just a really cool way to be introspective and figure out how I could grow even more. And that's totally been the case, because as you write, and I think, Ginger, you told this to me when we talked one time, is like, you learn so much this whole process, and like you discover like what you need to work on and what else is going on. It's like a totally interesting and liberating experience to like be able to like take a step back from your life and examine it through a different lens and put it on paper. And then that just feels super permanent, and it's kind of scary. I think that's why a lot of people don't do it. Podcasting is easy because, like, we're 30 minutes into this. No one's going to watch it to this far, right? But like, it's cathartic for us to be able to talk about it, right?
I want to start some of the comments of the people that actually listen to the end.
Yeah,
they made it that far.
Yeah, you made it this far.
I could say that by that point.
There you go. Yeah, if you've made it this far, put a comment down below.
Yeah, right.
I made it this far.
Yeah, my parents are excluded from this because they're probably the only ones who will watch it this far. But it's like, it's great. It's similar in nature, right? I mean, so you think about it. What's the point of writing something? What's the point of speaking about it? Like, who's it for? And sometimes it has to be for yourself. And I think that's a good enough reason to do something like that.
Yeah, Irene, would you recommend this to other people? I mean, you're a coach, right? So you have other. Yeah. Would you recommend this as something that everyone should be doing, or is this just for a select few that actually want to do it?
You mean writing in a book? Oh,
Sure.
Absolutely. When Ginger came to me with the idea of it, what did I say, Ginger? I said, I've always wanted to write a book, and I still have a book in me. I'm not sure what it's going to be about yet, but this is a good first step to write about one of my favorite things, which is leadership. And so I'm grateful. I jumped right in. But I'm grateful to Ginger to ask me to do this with her. The first time I met Ginger, I had been Facebook friends with her for years and had never met her.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, Ginger, when I came we were having an event with our coaching group, and she was sitting here at the bar, and I went up to her.
Where I usually am.
Yeah, she wasn't drinking or anything. She was just visiting. And so I was so grateful to meet her because she had been my mentor, watching things that she had done. And then lo and behold, she ended up being a real mentor to me as a friend, a mentor, and being able to guide me through a lot in the last couple of years. So I have to give a shout out to her because first of all, I wouldn't be here without her. And second of all, we've been able to find ways to pivot in our businesses together, not together in our businesses, but together our minds, thinking of different ways. And I'm grateful for that.
I think that's why I partnered with Ginger, because I was like, if I can drop her name, I'll get a bunch of people signing up. I would have like maybe 5 people if I just use my name. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think everybody should write. I do. It was very, what I got out of it was a humongous amount of gratitude for my life. Just having to think back into old stories and things that I haven't thought about for years.
Yeah. Just
gratitude to have the opportunities that I've had and to help other people.
And the lessons you've learned. And I think, that's probably one of the things too, in the conversations Fobby have been having with our authors is as they're writing the chapters and the lessons that they've learned, and how it does apply and how they can. I always, in all of my books, I always sign it, always pass on what you have learned. And I don't have any tattoos, but if I did have a tattoo, that might be it. Because that's how I believe, good, bad, or otherwise, always pass on what you have learned. I mean, Joe, what you learned in pivoting, when we've all had to pivot in our business. And Irene, yes, we've had many conversations about that. But you can learn more in having to do that pivot and take those lessons and share those lessons. Those are the things that I think people always think you need to do a book about the positivity and about growth and all those. It's like, sometimes you need to, sometimes you need to read a book on how do I overcome all this shit, It's like,
there's a really good book called Falling Forward. Who
wrote that?
It's a guy named Fobby. I recommend that to anyone who wants to learn how to fail.
I knew there'd be a shameless plug sooner or later around you.
Anyway, guys, thank you for all being on the show today. It was great getting to know you guys a little bit deeper than before. You know what I mean? And thank you all for being part of this journey with Ginger and I on this Leadership Matters, because it does matter. And with that, we're going to get out of here. Okay, guys?
All right. Sounds good.
Awesome.